What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Here we are with another reaction, and in this one we are looking into why didn't Britain ever try to retake the United States. We got a short animated documentary. Why wouldn't they try to retake the US? I feel like I'm not completely sure, but I guess I'll throw out a guess, an uneducated guess. I just feel like it probably, after the battles that they end up losing to the US, it's probably too expensive to try to go to war with the US again and like try to retake the US. And after being defeated in the beginning stages, I can only assume that the US would become stronger over time, and so it would be harder for Britain to retake the United States. And at the same time, it may not been as big of a deal for Britain. It's like, okay, the US, they beat us, so we're like, they can go do what they want to do. Like, we don't care about retaking it. Do what you want. We don't care. We got still a humongous empire at this point. So that's just gonna be my uneducated guess. We'll listen to this video. Before we dive in, if you guys would like to support this channel by becoming a member, smash that join button to receive your exclusive benefits, and let's hear the real reasoning.
After the American Revolution and the birth of the United States, the British were somewhat unhappy, and many there never really got over the loss. So why was it then that over the next century the British never made any attempt to retake some or all of the United States? Why simply accept that it was gone forever? So in the immediate aftermath of American independence, Britain wasn't really in a rush to change anything. Well, the new government across the pond wasn't exactly a high-functioning one. Its new leaders couldn't agree on how the new country would operate, which meant that until new rules could be written, most of the old ones stayed in force, meaning that there was a lot of money to be made without the cost of running the place, which was a bonus. Now,
I mean, that is a bonus, right? What is that? We still get to
meaning
run
that
America. We still get to trade with America. We don't have to pay to run the place. Yes, a very new nation just gained their independence. Now they gotta figure it out. It's like being a kid, right? You finally gain independence from your parents. But that's when it get really scary, because now you got to figure things out for yourself. That's when you got to figure life out. And that sounds like the stage America was in. And they still got to trade with America without having to pay to run the place. It kind of sounds great for Britain at this point.
There was a lot of money to be made without the cost of running the place, which was a bonus. Now, eventually, the US would draft its constitution, which would then limit foreign trade. This wasn't a good enough reason to declare war, though, and Britain wasn't actually that worried about America's continued independence. You see, the prevailing belief in Parliament was that monarchy was the most natural form of government, and that as such, the new American Republic was doomed to failure. Throughout the Revolution and shortly afterwards, many American revolutionaries actually saw themselves as English, or at least close to it. And in London, the belief was that they'd soon learn the error of their ways and move to bring back a monarchy. And since there were no American nobles, they'd inevitably have to turn to Britain, and who better than King George?
Hey, so it's like, again, compare it when your parents, hey, you learn how life is for yourself. A lot of kids will come back. It's like, no, they'll understand, and they'll come back, hand out, asking the parents, like, can you let me back in? And so it sounds like that's what the UK was expecting. They got their independence, but they don't know what being independent is truly like. They don't know all the struggles and hardships that come with independence. So once they figure it out, once they see all the hardships, once they learn how much of a struggle it is, they'll be crawling back to us. So let America think they're independent, let them do their thing, but at the end of the day, we've got the best way to rule. Their way is going to fail, and when it inevitably fails, we'll be waiting to take them back in the fold. But that ain't how it went.
If there were no American nobles, they'd inevitably have to turn to Britain, and who better than King George? And from there, the slow but inevitable process of reincorporating America into the empire would begin. Now, obviously this never happened, but given Britain's own flirtation with republicanism in the 17th century, it wasn't an unreasonable belief. Now, shortly after the Constitution was signed, France had itself a revolution, and between then and 1815 was in a constant state of war with Britain. As such, the British had more pressing issues, which led to it impressing sailors sailing under the US flag. This led to the War of 1812, and it was the last time that Britain could have realistically retaken some of the United States. So, did it try? Well, yes. Lord Liverpool,
Oh,
the Prime Minister at the time, wasn't trying to conquer all of the United States, but he did
yes.
want to expand Britain's holdings at the expense of the US. You see, the
Okay.
border between British America and the US wasn't really well defined, and the British wanted to
Oh,
bring the border to here and annex Maine and turn it into the colony of New Ireland. The British had occupied much of the area during the war, and so long as the rest of it went well, it was believed that the Americans would simply give it up. But during the peace negotiations, Britain never asked for a single inch of territory. So
oh,
why not? Well, the first reason was that London's primary concern was the redrawing of the map in Europe to prevent future wars becoming Britain's problem. The primary concern was that France wouldn't accept the changes and that war would begin again. As such, it was
oh.
decided that Britain would offer a return to pre-war everything, and the Americans agreed. In the decades and century after this,
Dang. So it sounds like the chances they had to try to retake the United States, they had more present concerns. They had to fight with the French, and so didn't really have time to be worried about the U.S. And then their last chance to not retake the United States as a whole, but to retake a piece of the United States. Again, more pressing matters came up, had to draw out the map in Europe, and at this point, I feel like America's just continuing to expand, continuing to get stronger, and at a certain point, you just make a treaty, right? It's like, hey, let's just be partners instead of enemies. Let's not fight. I feel like U.S. might have gotten too strong at this point to try to retake land or territory, and the UK just had bigger fish to fry, to put it in the simple terms.
that Britain would offer a return to pre-war everything, and the Americans agreed. In the decades and century after this, British attention was firmly focused on expanding in India and later Africa, as well as the looming confrontation with Russia in Central Asia. As such, North America took a back seat, and by the mid-19th century, the US was far too great a power for the British to ever risk war without potentially losing Canada, and so they did nothing. And so the dream of reincorporating a single inch of American territory was dead forever. I hope you enjoyed this episode with a special thanks to my patrons, James Bizanet, Kelly Moneymaker, Sky Chappelle, Kartoitska, Anthony Beckett, Rod D. Martin, Yuduan Wang, Mark...
I absolutely enjoyed that. But so yeah, they just had more present concerns, and then at a certain point, they're just like, all right, let's just make our presence more felt in Africa, more felt in India, as we know they did. And then at a certain point, let's say mid 19th century, U.S. was at that point was too powerful, and they didn't want to risk fighting that war at risk of losing Canada to the U.S. as well, which would have been absolutely insane. Like, had the United States been Canada and the U.S. all incorporated into one, is such a crazy thought to think about. But I think things worked out like they were supposed to, and now everything's like it's supposed to be. Everybody got their countries, everybody got their land, everybody got their territories. But as we know, even in this day and age, over time things will change, borders will change, territories will change. So we'll continue to see what happens. But that was just kind of very interesting. I never really thought, when I thought Americans gained independence, I guess I never really thought about the British ever trying to take the United States back. I feel like since they lost the U.S. to the U.S., like they lost or U.S. gained its independence by winning that war, that it was just squashed right there, that it was over. But it sounds like British were just thought, hey, they're going to fail. They're going to come back to us. We'll get them back in the fold. That didn't happen. U.S. expanded a little bit more. All right, well, now we got to fight with the French. The U.S. has expanded a little bit more. All right, now we got to draw these maps in Europe so that everybody's happy with their borders, so that there's no more wars in Europe. The U.S. continues to expand. And then, all right, now we want to make our presence in Africa, in India. Right now, and the U.S. expands, or U.S. becomes stronger, and at that point, even if you were to look at the U.S. again, it's just too strong at that point. So that was a really cool video. Let me know what you guys think about that one. That was very interesting. If you happen to enjoy, don't forget to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, check out the next one. I'll see you guys next time.